Okay, today we are going to learn about the obligation that people have to light the menorah properly. We had a few sessions already on, and we were learning about women and the obligation to light the menorah. Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Tov Ayin Hey Siv Gimel Isha Madlekes Ner Chanukah, women should light the menorah. Shafi Chayav Ba, she's obligated. Aval im hedlika cher shot v'katan lo yosa klum. If someone who is deaf, mentally challenged, or a minor lit the menorah, that individual has not accomplished anything. The obvious question is, why not? V'aval pi shehenicha gadol, and even though that someone above the age of bar mitzvah put the menorah down, nevertheless that would not work because we hold halakha isa mitzvah, not hanacha isa mitzvah. The lighting is the mitzvah as opposed to the placing. We must categorize it when we say a deaf person, we're talking about sheina medaber v'eina shameya. That this individual cannot hear or see. And therefore, it wouldn't count. Mentally challenged, we understand it wouldn't work. A minor, we understand why it wouldn't work. Someone who isn't Jewish, put the menorah down, it wouldn't work. The lighting would not count. Says the Shulchan Aruch, some say that if the minor reached the age of education, then it would in fact be permissible. Meaning, if he could fulfill the obligation of others when he lights, and the reason is that since this mitzvah of lighting the menorah is rabbinic in nature, is midrabanan, and also the katan, this minor, is obligated rabbinically, midin chinuch, midivrei soifrim, because of chinuch to educate him, so consequently he is able to halachically light. I wrapped it up by saying that according to us, that everyone lights, if the minor reached the age of chinuch, would need to light. The Mishna Berura in Tess says Perush be'ad kol beisa. A woman can light, technically speaking, and fulfill the obligation of everyone in her house, all of the members of her house. Before we, you know what? Let's go through this Mishna Berura. The explanation is, not only is she allowed to light a menorah, but technically speaking, she could fulfill the obligation from a halachic perspective of everyone else in her house, including her husband. Now we're going to learn this isn't preferable to do, but technically it could be done, but it's not halachically preferable. Not only that, but it says the Mishna Berura in the continuation over here of a filu ish, even a person, a male, could make her a messenger, and she will fulfill his obligation. In other words, even a male that she's not married to could appoint her as a messenger to light on his behalf and his family's behalf, and she could fulfill their obligation. But that's only, says the Mishna Berura, that's only if they are standing there at the time when she is reciting the bracha and listening to the bracha. So you see from over here that if you want to fulfill your obligation of menorah, you really need to be standing there and listening to the bracha. Gam kein yatsu. Im lo yanu, im lo anu. Amen ala bracha gam kein yatsu. And post facto b'diavad, if they didn't answer amen to the bracha, they would also fulfill their obligation. Why need to stand there? It's a big discussion over here. What's the reason why you need to be there? And we'll learn more about shlichus. Maybe you can fulfill your obligation if you're not there. But according to this Mishna Berura, you clearly need to be there for fulfill your obligation. So preferably speaking, person should answer amen. However, if you didn't answer amen, you still fulfill your obligation. Why? Because it's a discussion in some Reishud Gimel. Shemei Ka'ona. Really all you need to do is listen to the bracha. When you listen to the bracha, it's like you yourself said the bracha, even if you didn't answer amen. However, person is preferably supposed to answer amen at a bracha.
And it's not a shliach.
So a shliach, because you're saying the bracha on your behalf, or she's saying the bracha on your behalf.
If you're not there, if you're there, then it's Shemei Ka'ona.
Shemei Kona, correct. So considered a shliach, like a shliach sibor.
But the point of
messenger of the congregation.
you can't be there, so you're sending the shliach.
There are different types. For example, when a person is chazan, he's shliach tzibur, he's technically the messenger of the congregation, even though everyone else is certainly
Yeah,
still
but the
there.
class example is taking truma for somebody else,
Yeah, okay, that's another form of shlichus. So this is the major discussion that they have in this footnote. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, there goes Moshe, others that they talk about why exactly you would need to be there as opposed to other mitzvahs you wouldn't. That's a major discussion in and of itself. And we're going to have to see. Maybe there could be exceptions, not in the simon we're going to learn about, but in more like Tuf Resh Zion, other places. I have to see. We only have 5 simon that we didn't learn. Tuf Resh Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalid, and then Zion.
And is this only going on if she's not B'nai Beis? So if she is B'nai Beis, so then she can be a shliach and you don't have to be there? Or it's
We're going to learn about that.
applying to
Correct.
both?
Correct. We're going to have to learn about that. That's an Ayin Zion, Shiloh, Tuf Resh Zion. So what's the idea over here that even if you didn't answer Amen, you fulfilled your obligation? So the Mishna Berura over there in Siman Reisha Gimel Sukkot and Yud Zayin explains that when we hold Shemei Ka'ona, so it's as if you yourself said the bracha, listening is like answering. That's only talking about b'di'evid, post facto, after the fact, if you didn't say Amen. However, l'chachila, preferably, there's an obligation to answer Amen with the bracha you're intending to fulfill the obligation with in order to show that you agree to the bracha, to demonstrate that you agree to the bracha that is being recited by the mavarach, by the person who is saying the bracha. Mishna Berura continues and says, "Kein ish mevarach leisha v'yoitzes yedei chayvaso imoy medesham v'shoimas habracha loy b'inyan." Similarly, if a male is going to recite the bracha or brachos on the menorah for a woman, she will fulfill your obligation with that if she's standing there and listening to the bracha loy b'inyan acher, not in another way. The insight of this is that even if the male is not fulfilling his obligation, for example, he already fulfilled his obligation, nevertheless, if a woman is incapable of reciting the brachos on her own, so then the male, not her spouse, but someone else, is actually able to say the brachos on her behalf and fulfill her obligation, even though he already fulfilled his obligation. Even if she didn't answer Amen, preferably she should be answering Amen, but not in another way. Um, if she's not standing over there, then it shouldn't be done. If this was done, then no one she wouldn't fulfill her obligation. This is a very important part of the Mishnah Berurah over here. You have the tshuva of the Dvar Shmuel, Ola Shmuel. I'm b'tshuvas Ola Shmuel, Simin Kofei. T'ledidon shemadlikin kol echad b'fnei atzmo. Since we all light individually, we all light on our own, Ashkenazim. Mikol makom yishein eino sricha lahadlik. Nevertheless, a woman doesn't need to light. Comes along the Ola Shmuel, us Ashkenazim, we all light independently, individually. Nevertheless, a woman doesn't need to light. Why? Dahavyon rak tefelos lanashim. Because they're considered tafel. They're secondary to men. So anyone who's half of a feminist would come along and say, this is disgusting. What does this mean we're secondary to men? You have French fries and ketchup. What bracha you say on that? Adama. Why don't you say shahakol on the ketchup?
It's tough.
It's tafel. It's secondary. It doesn't matter the ketchup. One bracha covers all. Says the Ola Shmuel, the women are the ketchup. We're the French fries.
Wait, does everyone say you should make Hadam on?
Yeah, everyone does. We'll learn hilchos brachos ketaf when we get there.
I
Everyone
make a
agrees.
shahak on the French fry.
Everyone. What'd you say? Make a shahako on French fries? Is that a joke?
I make shahak on French fries usually.
Well, that's wrong. They're dumb. They're potatoes.
Why would it be a joke?
They're potatoes.
But
Potatoes
you
grow
don't
from the
know.
ground.
It depends on the French fry. Like
Most French fries
like a
are
steak
adama.
fry.
They're
It's
potatoes.
not like Pringles.
Yeah, no, they're straight from the ground. You make a dama.
Right.
But
I make a I
99% of
make
French
a
fries are a dama.
shahako on a I make a padama
No, over
on a potato
99% of French fries are a
potato chip
dama.
that's like a it's shot.
No, now you know, so it's good I brought
But
that
you
example up that had absolutely
it's
nothing to do with what
it's
we're learning. So now you know, make a dama.
what about mashed potatoes?
Yeah,
Oh, so
we'll talk.
that,
We'll talk after. We'll talk after. Right now, we're learning hilchos Chanukah.
What
Now
about
you should know French
wait
fries are
wait
a dama. So the question is,
wait
what is the
wait about a potato?
explanation of this Mishna Berura that the tefelos lanoshim, they're secondary, they're tafel. What does this mean? By the way, it says over here you could also make a diuk. Says Yusha in a sricha lahadlik. She doesn't need the light, which implies if she wants, she could light. By the way, that's the next line. V'imroitzim lahadlik mevarchos. If she wants to light, then she could. She could, in fact, light. Why? Dahavi kishar mitzvah azman garama the yichaylos levarach. This is akin, it's similar to other time-bound mitzvahs, where if a woman wants to, she could recite the bracha, except for tzitzis and tefillin, which are exceptions, she's not allowed to.
is that an Ashkenazi thing also?
Yeah, Ashkenazim, this is how Ashkenazim hold. Sephardim don't go like that.
Right, exactly.
So the question is, manavshach. If we're saying that she shouldn't light because she's tefillos, which we still have to figure out exactly what that means over here, which we will properly, and certainly by the end of tomorrow's session. So then she shouldn't be able to light. It would be a bracha sheina sricha, an extra unnecessary bracha. She shouldn't be doing it. And if we're saying that she could light, because it's no worse than any other time-bound mitzvah, so then what's this whole deal with the tefillos business? The secondary. We also saw that Eliyahu Rabbah says, Ishto kegufa, that your wife is like yourself. And therefore, when you light, it's as if your wife lit. Now, before we continue, we just have to point out to anyone who's a quarter of a feminist that at the end of the day, the chauvinists could have claims on Shabbos and Yontif, as we discussed last section. How come you get to light every single week on Shabbos and Yontif? If you add up the amount of times that you light on Shabbos and Yontif versus the 8 days of Hanukkah, it's a lot more. 5 times the amount at least.
We're not happy with that.
Right? So that's how you start the conversation off. There's reasons why they light Shabbos and Yontif. Okay. So there's reasons why maybe they shouldn't be lighting here, as we see. So we're going to have to discuss those reasons to come in with the right ammunition to understand this properly. So let's gear up here. Kishayin ayish bebayis. By the way, if the man isn't home, it's on a business trip. Tadlik ayisha dahavi bar chiyuv b'raka v'loy yad l'katan. So then the woman should light because she's obligated, not a minor, which implies if the son was left there over the age of bar mitzvah, he should light for everyone. All right. Now, based on the fact that we're talking about women, Mishna Berura then quotes the tshuva of the Rashal. But before we get to that Rashal, why doesn't she light? Because she's tefillos. Lola Shmuel said. Secondary, ishto kegufo, they point out. Wife is like the husband's body. When the husband lights, consider that she lit. If she wants to, she could. She could even make the bracha.
Guess that goes for B'nai Besa also. Right? He lights, he's lighting for everyone.
No.
No?
Boys are supposed to light on their own. Everyone.
The daughters.
Daughters, we have to discuss in this session. The daughters light. Pretty no guy to me. I got 4 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they give a nice presentation to start opening this topic up over here, down here. We already saw that Eliyahu Rabbah says Ishto Kagufa, your wife is like yourself. It's implied from there that it's one reason. However, the Chedushe Har Svi on the Gemara and Shabbos on Chof Aleph Amid Beis asks a question. If you're gonna say a woman shouldn't lie because Ishto Kagufo, your wife is like yourself, and when you light, it's as if she's lighting, then guess what? That's only if you're married. But an unmarried woman should light. There's many answers to this question. There's a lot to say. There's a Tom Sefer which is quoted all over the place. Tom Sefer and his commentary to the Gemara in Shabbos and Chof Aleph Amud Beis. Sam Sefer comes along and basically says, once upon a time they used to only light outside. When they would light outside, it wasn't so modest for a woman to go there. So therefore, because of sneas, modesty, kol isha kavoida bas pnima, kol kavoida bas melech pnima, excuse me. Therefore, it was considered more respectable for her to be inside and more modest, and therefore that applies to all girls, all women, that they shouldn't be lighting to commemorate that idea. Therefore, the custom developed for them not to light at all. However, the Shail's Chuvas Ola Shmuel says that he doesn't go with that. He doesn't go with that reason, it seems like. But what would be the simple explanation in the Dvar Shmuel and his Tshuva that they're tefillos at the secondary? The miracle of Chanukah, as we already learned in Siman Tov Reish Ayin, why there's no obligation, the general halacha, to have a meal, is because the decree wasn't on our bodies, it wasn't physical, it was something spiritual. They didn't want us to learn Torah, they didn't want us to perform mitzvahs. They decreed that the men should write on the Keren Hashor, mistake over here, it shouldn't say Svi, Keren Hashor, it's brought down. Svi is a deer, Shor is a bull. Write on the horn of a bull. And the way that the commentators explain is because nowadays you have billboards, you have ads online, everything. Back then, that was their good advertisement on the bulls. So they would say, right, you have no portion among the Jewish God. However, the decree of the woman, as we already learned, we saw in the Gemara Rashi, the Ram, we're going to see in the next Mishna Berura, is going to quote this in short, was any woman who wasn't married, who was engaged, would have to have relations with one of the Greek officers, the generals, before getting married. So now, if that would be decreed upon the men, that type of decree to be involved with illicit relations, they would have to give up their life, rather than transgress such a thing. However, women would not be obligated to give up their life because of Taisus and Ksubas, the Sugi and Ksubas over there, Gimel and Beis, Karkolim, it's considered that she would be passive. Consequently, comes out that the decree against the men, the males and the females on Chanukah was different. Unlike by other holidays, Pesach, Purim, the decree was equal. And therefore, the mitzvahs of Pesach and Purim are equivalent. You don't find such a difference in halacha. Conversely, specifically on Chanukah, that the decree wasn't equivalent with both males and females, therefore the women are considered secondary. The extra explanation of secondary, fellas, it has nothing to do with the Torah disliking women. Chas v'shalom, on the contrary. It's not tefillos that women are ketchup. Nothing to do with ketchup. The explanation of tefillos is, according to the Devar Shmuel, that the decree wasn't equivalent. Their decree wasn't as harsh as the decree, as if the males would have had such a decree, because they wouldn't be obligated to give up their lives, and therefore, consequently, that's why on Chanukah the male should light, not the woman, preferably. Seems like that's the general halach, as we will learn more about. Should be pointed out also that we're only analyzing one aspect of the Chanukah. What about the Milchama, the war? Right? The women, they were involved with a little bit of an aspect, momentum. Women didn't go out to fight the war. So you have that also to contend with. The Shiles and Shuvas, Mincha Shlomo, and Chilik Beisamin, and Ches, Rishlomo Zalmanor Baches, an obvious question over here. Wait a second. If she wants to lie to herself, she's not going to have the intention to fulfill her obligation with her husband. So now she's fully obligated. Let's say, for example, she listens to Kiddush and she has a mind she's not going to fulfill her obligation. So then she's fully obligated. Nothing to do with the time bound mitzvah. She's obligated right now. So let's say we have Erev Tavshilin. Make an Erev Tavshilin. And she has in mind, I'm not going to fulfill my obligation with my husband's Erev Tavshilin and make my own bracha. That's a bracha shein esricha. It's a bracha in vain. Making extra brachas over here. Right. Rather, Ner Chanukah over here. The idea is when it comes to the menorah, it's a completely different situation over here. Everyone can light themselves. Mahadrim and a mahadrin, everyone should light themselves. So we would have thought, Hava, Mina that since Isho Kegufo, the women are like the husband, now it's prohibited for her to enter into the situation over here. This obligation of lighting. And her lighting herself. We would have thought that she's not allowed to. Isho Kegufo, she's like her husband. She can't light. Kamash Malan, that's why we need to say other words. Then no, she is allowed to light. Just like she could enter into other time-bound mitzvahs and recite the bracha, even though she's exempt, so too when it comes to menorah. That's the insight by menorah. That's the chiddush. She's able to.
Well, because of Mahadran?
Yes, correct. Mahadran, and Mahadran. Mishna Berura continues by then quoting the Rashal. Kotz Rashal b'tshuva ayin zayin. Suma imu v'bayis sha'achedim. Forget about the suma. We're going to come back to it. Not enough time. Mishna Berura Yud Shafi Chayav Azbasha Nesa Yagam Lahen. The miracle happened to women. Shakazeda Haisa Alko Basula Hanises. The decree was on every unmarried woman who's getting married. Shtibal have relations with the general first. The Gama Teshua Nasali Deisha. Also, the salvation occurred through women. Yehudis Shabbas Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the daughter of Yochanan, the Kohen Gadol. Chatcha Roisho. Shel Roish Hasorim. She cut off the head of the enemies. As person something, I forgot the name of the guy. Spistinus something, I don't know. She cut it off. She got him, gave him cheese. She got dirt. She got him drunk. Cut the head off. That's in the salvation. The momentum changed. The Be'er Halacha says, just so you'll see where I'm coming from when I'm so harsh that women shouldn't light. I am Mishna Berura. Woman can fulfill the obligation of her husband. It's well known what the rabbis teach us in the Gemara. Technically speaking, a son could recite a bracha and fill the obligation of his father, and a woman could recite the bracha and fill the obligation of her husband. But the rabbi says, a curse should befall someone who his wife recites the bracha and fulfills his obligation, or the children recite the bracha and fulfill the obligation of their father, their family. Should not be done. But it says in the Gemara in Shabbos Chav Gimel, to call Madlika Alai Begoy Beisi, she lived for me in my house. That's because he wasn't home. And the main obligation, as we have to learn more about, is on the house. To get the menorah lit in the house. Right, we're gonna have to come back to that. Tov Resh Ayin Zayin. And therefore, consequently, that's why she could light when he's not home. But if she is home, then she shouldn't be lighting. They say over here, two reasons why women are obligated in menorah. Number one, the decree was on them, as we discussed. Number two, another explanation. What does it mean they're part of the miracle? The salvation occurred through them. Yeah, they speak out the whole cheese story with the getting him intoxicated and then killing him. Yeah.
Wait. So wouldn't there be more of an Indian to have wine in them? On Hanukkah?
It's a nice idea, but that was already going
No.
into a couple steps in the process of the miracle. We're just saying the general thing occurred through this way. What's the reason that a curse should befall someone who who his wife lights for him. Because he didn't learn enough how to do the bracha on his own. And if he did learn it, he knows how to do it, and still he has his wife doing it, curse should come to him. Because he's disgracing what his creator. To make messengers like this.
Disgracing his creator?
Yeah. You're disgracing your creator that you're making messengers like this. A minor or your wife. Do it yourself, man up. Disgrace your creator. That's why you should be careful to light by yourself over here. Look at Rashi in the Gemara in Sukkah and Lamed Ches and Aleph. Dibor Maskil v'Tov Miyudas. Take a look over there. Rashi in Sukkah Lamed Ches. You have to remember, yeah. Okay. Maisa, due to time limitations, we unsuccessfully finished the simon. We were right on track, but we missed it. So therefore, tomorrow we're gonna have to wrap it up in tomorrow's session, and we'll try to research this a little bit more, present more information off the daf, off of what we just saw about this business with women lighting and not, and especially I think we should figure out, is it preferable for a girl to light or not in Mahadrim and Mahadrim? Yeah, because it seems like according to the Chassam Sofer they shouldn't. However, nowadays no one lights outside anyways in America. Right. So I think we have to have that discussion, go a little back and forth about that, see what's going on, because it's a pretty relevant, meaning what does Hashem want from females? We understand already when they're married. The Mishna Berura also quotes Ishto Kigufa and Tafresh Ayin Aleph. He also quotes it over there. We understand married, but the question is unmarried for Ashkenazim in Chutz La'aretz over here. Yeah, over mitzvah. Yeah, sure. Even under Chinuch, we have to have that conversation. Okay. Yeah. All right. Have a wonderful day. Welcome to you.